Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jen Liss, the podcast that's here to help you break free, be you, and unleash your inner brilliance. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we're going to talk about how to create your life by design. Let's dive in. Hey there, friend. It's Jen. Welcome back to the podcast for an interview with one of my new favorite people. Nicoa Cornelius is an executive coach, speaker, author, and host of the podcast Coffee with Nicoa. I was on her podcast a while back, and it was one of the most delightful experiences being in a virtual space with this individual. And then we started following one another on Instagram and freaking delighted to know her. And I'm so delighted to bring her onto the podcast so that you can get to know her too. So her experience has been that she 15 years ago realized that she wasn't creating the life that she desired to live. And she wanted to create something different for herself. And you're going to get to hear her entire story and the journey that brought her to where she's at today. And this is such a powerful conversation. It doesn't matter whether you're working a corporate job currently, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you want to be an entrepreneur. What she shares is applicable to all of the above because she's been all of the above and she coaches people. She's an executive leadership coach. She only works with a select group of people. You might be one who might be somebody who's perfect for what she does, but she really knows how to support people in really creating a life that they truly love to live and how to change that over time. One of the things that we talk about is removing the shame around change. Like what you loved 5 years ago, you might not love today. What you loved yesterday, you might not love today. We change and we get to recognize that the behaviors that we have and the choices that we make craft our life. We're always creating our life by design. So everyone, meet Nicoa. She's amazing. We were just having this conversation. So behind her is just this beautiful, colorful smorgasbord. It makes me want to come and hang out in that room because there's so much color and you've got this library. And Nicoa was telling me about this library aesthetic that is apparently a thing and how she's the OG of the library aesthetic because this is the real deal. Claiming it, but not trying. It's just you are it.
I am a mess. That's what this is. It's just a messy set of bookshelves with, I was remarried after a 25-year marriage and I combined two households about 5 years ago with my husband and his 3 kids. So we are the Brady Bunch. And that's what a bookshelf starts looking like when you combine that much of history from 2 families.
Well, it's perfect. Anybody can go watch the clips on YouTube or on Instagram so that you can see them. And one of the things that I thought was so interesting when that conversation came up at the very beginning before we hit record is that is what I feel like is you. Like you were doing the library aesthetic before you knew it was cool, just because that's you. And you were creating a life by design before so many other people came to this realization that they wanted and desired to create a life by design. Because that's the thing that you talk about is people creating a life that is truly designed for them. And you've been doing that for how many years? 15 years?
Honestly, Jen, everybody's doing it all the time. They just aren't doing it intentionally.
Tell us more about that.
Right. So what I realized was, if you'd asked me, I've been out on my own now for 15 years, but if you'd asked me 20 years ago, well, what are you doing? What is your life? I'd be like, well, I'm in the corporate world. I'm a human resources executive. And, I continue to change roles and I travel the world. I've been to over 30 countries and I'm married. I have a stay-at-home husband and 3 kids that, 3 beautiful babies and, the white picket fence. I did all that very intentionally. That was my life by design. And I was somewhat miserable most of the time. Not completely, but I was kind of like, wow, I'm exhausted. Why am I drinking all this wine? And why am I just not quite satisfied enough? And I think it really hit me once when I was talking to my mom I was, as good Southern girls do. I'm from North Carolina, and I was having a stressful day at work, and I was on my way home, and I called my mama, right? And I'm just whining and complaining and crying and miserable. And I had to stop the car and get out and walk around to talk to her back in the day on my BlackBerry. This is how I'm 55 now. So this was back in the day.
But you were so cool with your BlackBerry, I'm sure.
I was so cool. I thought I was so cool. I was very important. So I'm miserable whining to my mom, but I had to get out of the car because I couldn't get service and I couldn't go home or my BlackBerry wouldn't work. I mean, this was how we were in a mountain out in California. And long story short, I remember looking up into the sky and saying to her, I know, Mom, but I don't think I was put on this earth to do this. I was put here for some other reason. It took me another 6 years before I finally quit my job with that stay-at-home husband and 3 kids, 12 years of age and under, with no plan, and walked out and never felt more coherent in my body, so relaxed. And I haven't looked back, except 7 weeks later, I did have a few panic attacks, but we worked through it. I survived. I've never missed a mortgage payment and I'm not homeless. So I'm feeling pretty good that, I made the right decision. And now I have lived those 15 years very intentionally, but not for the same reasons. So purpose, there was never a purpose. It was the American dream checklist. It was what everybody told me to do. So all of a sudden I began to question, what is my purpose? Like, why am I here? What makes me feel good? And then it was, okay, let's try that. Oh, that doesn't feel good. Oh, let's try that. Oh, I don't like that either. Oh, this feels good. Do more of that. Oh, and began to get out ahead of my life and intentionally design it. And that's where the whole concept of a life by design comes from.
Yeah, this concept and idea around you're already designing your life. What are the reasons? Like, what are the reasons that are driving your decisions that are creating the design? What are the parameters that you're creating it within? That's huge.
And where did you get those parameters? Right.
Yeah.
Well, I often ask my clients, what percentage of your life is yours? That you're living. Are you living your life? Is it 100% your life? Or is it 50% your mother's and 22% your rabbi and, 18% that one teacher in the 4th grade who told you couldn't be in science? I don't know. Because we're completely influenced by all the external factors. And that's the hero's journey. You're supposed to be born knowing you're enough. Then you're brainwashed to do all these things and be quiet and sit still and do all the things that you're supposed to do, be a sweet little Southern girl. And then all of a sudden it's not working for you. And then you go, wait a minute. And then you start waking up. And most people do this around the age of 40. And my job is to help everybody realize you don't have to wait till you're 40 to figure this out.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that everybody will listen to this. And my kids are listening. And I'm still not sure they hear me, but they seem to be. I'm not sure they're listening, but I think they hear me. That's what I wanted to say.
I love it. Well, they've got to go on their own journey. I think one of the things that you did there, and you likely do very intentionally with your clients, you're removing the shame from the journey that we've been on. Like, you only know what you know until the point that you're at. And maybe all of that was meant for you, I believe, to get you to this point where you look around, and exactly what you described is what this podcast is all about, is looking around and seeing the tethers. Like, what? I just suddenly weaved this web and I don't even know what I was doing, but it's kind of beautiful in a way, but it's not for me.
Right.
This web isn't mine.
It served me until it didn't serve me. Right.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You can't, you talk about shame, and a lot of people are really, 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 really worried about what people think of them. But they're basing that fear, uncertainty, and doubt around whether or not they can get life right or wrong, at least in the eyes of others. And so when they recognize that you can't get this thing called life wrong, then it's freeing. You are untethered at that point. You weren't tethered to begin with. That was made up. You were the creator of the tether.
It's so
So now
true. This is some
you're
meta
free,
stuff.
right? It's so meta. You're so free now that you have to say, okay, wait a minute. Now I'm a little freaked out. I can remember being quite paralyzed after quitting my job. And, you wake up in the bed and you think, I could do 52 things right now. I have no idea what to do. And you don't get out of bed. You're like, I'm paralyzed. So it takes a while to uncover who that version of you really is outside of all the identities you were brainwashed to believe you were supposed to have, the cultural influences, your family influences, the societal expectations, and the whole American dream checklist was my driver. It's been an interesting what do they say? It's really unknowing. It's been an interesting unknowing.
Yeah, it's peeling back the onion to get back down to, what is the core of what I care about? What it appears from the outside in, looking at what the life that you have designed and that you're living, you just seem to be having so much freaking fun. Like, I'm drawn to you. I want to look at your Instagram stories because I'm like, what the hell is she up to today? She's like jumping off of docks and skinny dipping or whatever. Like, you just seem like you're having fun. Has that always been a part of who you are? Has there been a freeing, like an untethering of your fun that has happened? Tell us about that journey.
That's a really cool question, because I think, of course, it's always been a part of who I am. And I remember when I left the corporate world after 20 years in human resources and having done that so intensely for so long, someone said to me, well, hey, how does that feel? You're no longer in the corporate world. And I was like, man, I feel like I'd been living in a state of restraint. Because I'd be in those meetings, and those of you listening, you know what I'm talking about. You're in these meetings and you're thinking, that is not what that guy said in the hallway. Right? Or I just feel like standing up and screaming right now and seeing what everybody would do. But you don't, because you're playing a game and you're playing by the rules and the norms and the expectations. So have I always been this way? Yeah, I am not restrained. I am not the kind of person who can live in a box. Do I always have fun? Absolutely not. I last week I had COVID, and I woke up one morning and I had an unexpected charge in my bank account that threw me for a loop in my business account. And I was like mad and stressed and miserable. And why am I even doing all that? I mean, I was just a normal human being. But I know that that was momentarily a way of being because I was under stress. And the more you get to know yourself, the easier it is to allow the emotion of being in stress and reacting and freaking out and flailing around. And then you go, okay, it's fine. I need to go back to bed. Like, I got it all figured out. I transfer that money from over there. Everything is figure outable. And I am going to feel better. This is not going to last forever. And when I do feel better, oh my God, then I spend a lot of time being so grateful and in joy of the fact that, wow, look how much better I feel. Because that really sucked. But now I feel better. And then I just try to live as much of that feel good life as I can until the next, bump in the road. That's just really the whole point, right? I mean, you do that. You talk about wanting to look at my stories. I love your stories. Going and hanging out in covered wagons and shit and doing ecstatic dance and
covered wagons and shit. I feel like that's my life by design, is legitimately covered wagons and ecstatic dance and shit. That is legitimately my 2024 plan. I called it fuck around and get paid. That's like, it's actually at the top of my vision for this year. And it's to remind me, it's not to be like, I mean, maybe it's to be a little bit silly, but it's to remind myself that I get to have fun. And the more fun I have, the more money I actually make, because that is a core part of who I am. It's a core part of who you are. Sitting in those HR meetings was not serving you. Some people love that kind of structure that actually is the being that they are. They love being in a really structured environment. Maybe there's also a question around that. But for the most, there are people who love that. And there are people who, like, we got to be untethered. And we're not happy in those environments. So funny what you said about corporate, because I came from entrepreneurship. Then I was like, I'm going to get a real job. I'm going to go be a corporate person. And so where do I end up? In HR, which is like the hardest place to possibly try to be yourself in a corporate environment. to be in employee experience HR, and I just was miserable. It was not for me.
It's hard to balance all the hats. I mean, you have to wear the hat of the employee and the hat of the company at all times. And that's a really tricky space to be in. It's interesting that you said that, when you said that about some people really like that structure. I want to be clear. I really liked the structure in the beginning. And I'll give you an example of how I knew I did. Two examples. One is I was a substitute teacher between undergrad and grad school in a public school here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And they were going to pay me $35 a day. But they probably don't pay you that much more now. But I went through 3 days of training, and then I was a substitute teacher for 1 day and 1 day only. I was the substitute PE teacher. And it felt like I was freaking herding cats all day long. And I didn't even know there were now like sixth graders in the middle school. When I was in middle school, it was 7th, 8th, and 9th. At the last period of the day, I couldn't even get these kids to sit still long enough to have the roll called. And I said, you guys, could you just listen? I was like, you guys are acting like a bunch of sixth graders. And they said, we are sixth graders. And I went home that night and I remember saying to myself, I would rather sit in a boardroom for 6 hours with no windows than try to be this substitute teacher. So there was a part of me that did not like chaos at all. I could not go with the flow back then. I couldn't relax enough and be that. I would be the best PE teacher today. I would have so much fun, but I was not that girl. And I know why I wasn't that girl. I wasn't that girl because my upbringing, albeit fine, I mean, divorce, et cetera, but chaotic. So I needed control to feel in control, to feel safe. So the beginning of my career looked very structured, very much you do this, you become the next executive. Yay, I've got checklist, American dream. I'm all about it. Well, I remember after having my third kid, I still hadn't quite gotten out of that way of being. And I had been home for 3 weeks. And I remember waking up after the baby was born. And I remember waking up one morning and going, oh, today's trash day. And then I thought, ooh, no, I don't want to know today's trash day. I want to think today's board meeting day. Like my whole identity was so caught up in that very structured, here's how you succeed. Here's your identity. Here's who you are. Isn't that interesting? I didn't want to be the stay-at-home mom. I had a stay-at-home husband. I didn't want to know what day trash day was. But now, fast forward again, and I'm like, I only want to know what day trash day is. I don't care if there's a board meeting. If I have more than 2 calls in a day, I'm like, when am I going to get my nap? I mean, it's a completely different way of being. I find it quite fascinating, honestly, Jen.
Yeah, it is fascinating to reflect on those versions of self. And again, without the shame, you're doing that so beautifully. You're just like, that's who I was then. And that's what I needed. And that was part of the journey. So you work a lot with corporate executives and people who are navigating their own journey. What is the challenge that you see for most people? Like, are there some common themes that most people tend to be coming up against? And how do you work them through what those top themes are?
Everybody write the word resistance down and arguing for your limitations. That is the biggest challenge I have with my clients is their resistance to the practices, their resistance to actually peeking through the door that looks like the version that wants to know about trash day and not board meeting day. They're terrified if they go and give themselves permission to worry about trash day, that they'll somehow miss the board meeting and get fired. You see what I mean? So it's like, I don't know how to do both. So my story is very black and white. I quit the job with no plan at 4:00 on a Monday afternoon in a meeting with my CEO. That was not what I'm recommending here at all. I left a ton of money on the table. I burnt a bridge. I just ran away. And what I'm finding that I can help my leaders really uncover is how to integrate knowing about trash day a little bit, knowing about board meetings a little bit, knowing what matters most to them, finding a little fun, even at work, right? Getting that best friend at work, finding little ways to integrate a life by design intentionally. And that will give them the joy and satisfaction and peace to recognize, is this serving me or is it not serving me? And do I want to do something different? Because sometimes they'll come to me and they're like, I need to leave. My boss is a jerk. I'm out. And I'll go, okay, well, we can certainly make that happen for you. And we're going to also figure out how you can love where you are right now before any of that change occurs. We do it in parallel. Sure, we can work on your resume. We can go look at all those companies you always wanted to work for. But right now, every day you got to still get up and go into the office. So let's figure out a way to change the perception of what you're currently experiencing so that you can go ahead now and find the peace and satisfaction. Because you and I both know that that's the secret to attracting the life you want. If you have to feel it now, you have to feel it now, or a dramatic, or as the astrologers will say, a tower moment will occur and you'll get knocked off your feet. Like you'll have a hissy fit in a meeting and quit your job like I did. Or you'll get fired, one or the other, right? And then your hand is forced. But if you're coming to me while you're in the middle of it, then we try to slowly but surely integrate ways for you to find peace in spite of your job. And you learn to stop arguing for your limitations and you relax into what's possible. More practices, lots and lots of practices. I don't know, what have you been implementing with your clients that are falling into that category?
Yeah. So, and even my own journey is this, because I was in a space of not loving my job. And I was like, I just got to do something. This is not working for me. I used to love it and now I don't. And I couldn't figure out how to get out of it. And a coach told me, so I'll be curious what question you ask your clients. A coach told me, just show up tomorrow and say, how can I have some fun today? Like one modicum of fun. Like it doesn't have to be a lot of fun, but what is this little bit of fun that I can have today? And like that question changed everything. It led to a moment that led to a moment that led to a moment that actually led to me going to a new corporate job, doubling my income, and then eventually realizing, oh, this life isn't for me. So in many ways, I think I probably followed your structure. But do you have, for somebody who is in that situation like me, like my question was, what can I do that's a little bit more fun? Do you have like a little window that you might be willing to share?
Yeah, of course. I want to share all of it. I want to go to the top of the mountain and make sure everybody's getting every single piece of information that I've ever learned as I have trained myself to be a really powerful, effective coach. And the very first question I usually ask somebody is, what is it that you really want? Guess what? Most people can't answer the question. And so that's like an epiphany for them. Oh, I don't even know what I want. Like, I don't even know. So we spend a little bit of time around that question. And then I'll back them up, because if they can't answer that quite yet, then I'll back them up into the dynamic that they're in. And we'll start with this question. What are you making it mean? That'll take 5 sessions. My gosh. I mean, we spend all this time. What are you making it mean? What did you make it mean when your boss didn't schedule your performance review in a timely manner? What did you make it mean when you didn't get that promotion? And then we dig deep. We go, why? Or why'd you make it mean that? We do root cause analysis. I come from manufacturing originally at GE. And when I worked in gas turbine manufacturing and GE Nuclear, GE Wind Energy, all the energy businesses, manufacturing was my favorite part. Because when something went wrong, we did a root cause analysis, right? Or if somebody almost got hurt or something almost happened, we called it a near miss. And I took these concepts and I started applying them to self-awareness and that way of being and that way of living. Well, what was I making that mean? What were the mistakes that we made? What were the lessons learned? What does that tell us? What's the root here? What is this telling us? And we're really, my interview I did yesterday with Lori Pine, the Joy CEO, she talked about getting a coach and having an archaeological dig. She was like, I was like, that's exactly what it is, right? An archaeological dig into who you are and why you behave the way you behave. Because
Takes courage.
It takes a lot of courage. So back to my first answer to your question, resistance and arguing for your limitations. Well, I can't sit still, Nicoa. So, I'm not going to be able to do that meditation thing you talked about. So I was like, okay, next. Not next client, but next we'll try something else. But I always come back to it. Let's talk about sitting still again. Oh, here's one practice. I think this one has been really profound, and it's so simple and weird. Everybody's like, what are you talking about? But they can't not try it. They can't not notice it when they go back to work. So I know not everybody is in an office right now, but if you can try this one practice, even if you're getting up from your desk and walking to your bathroom in your house, I want you to walk 50% slower than you usually would.
I'm even just imagining myself doing this and can feel resistance.
Exactly. Now, for me, if you were telling me that, I might joke and say, oh my God, I'd pee all over myself by the time I got there. But what does that tell me? My energy, my way of being, how my body moves. If I can be conscious enough to slow down how I'm walking, then I can be conscious enough to slow anything down and then get into a space of choice for my way of being to more effectively interact when the boss forgets to do something that I really wanted or doesn't show up for me the way I wish they would. Then I'm slowed down enough to be at choice. It's just mindful awareness. And people are so busy being like the ball in the pinball machine, just getting paddled around, that they're not living a life by design. They're living by default, right? Mm-hmm. So I want you to be the paddles. I want you to know, oh, I'm going to move myself over here. I'm going to get into that hole over there in the pinball machine. I'm going to do my best to go up here and get the 100 points because it is a game. But you're never going to win the game or attract what you truly desire, your deepest heart's desires, until you slow it down. And as Jen would say, take a big old deep breath, right? Let's get that breath work going. And then ask yourself, what do I want? How's what I'm doing getting me what I want? If I'm not getting what I want, am I willing to try a different way?
This is so powerful. I think everybody's going to, anybody who just listened to that is going to go try that exercise because you can't not, like you said, you can't not. And where I think I can feel the resistance in my body to that idea of slowing down like that, which is where I think breathwork comes in for me, because when we start to feel those resistant moments, that's when your nervous system is like, this is not okay. You're doing something weird. And so then we can breathe through those moments just to kind of loop that full circle, because our breath comes into these practices because it supports our nervous system in so many ways, as does meditation and such. But Nicoa, this reminded me when I was in college, I was in sociology class, and the teacher said, do some kind of social experiment, whatever you want to do, some kind of social experiment where you can observe yourself and your discomfort and the world around you. What I chose to do, my best friend and I got in a car and I said, I'm going to drive 17 miles per hour down this street that is normally people are going 45. And so we talk about this all the time, this idea of driving 17 miles per hour, because we got honked at. People were so angry. We were so nervous and uncomfortable. And then eventually we started laughing. We could not stop laughing at how mad everybody was around us, which it makes me think of this idea of if you walked 50% slower to the bathroom, everybody's in a hurry. Everybody is that pinball and they're going so fast and they might be looking at you like, what is happening? But when you can pass that threshold of not caring about everybody looking at you and the pinball that they're all in and become that person who's just kind of like enjoying and laughing, there's such a shift that happens in that moment.
It's a major shift. And yet I can even still see people, my clients saying to me, but what if I like to walk fast, Nicoa? And I said, then walk fast. That's not the point. The point is for you to be a choice. Are you choosing to walk fast? Great, walk fast. I don't care. It's not, you can't get it wrong. The question is, are you truly at choice? And how can you foster enough space, like your word of the year, that will create the ability to be at choice? And you can't do that until you relax the body and slow down. And slowing down speeds up your effectiveness. So that's kind of there's a trick there, but no, I can't slow down. I don't have time. I'm like, make time. What do they say? If you don't have time to meditate twice as longer, for an hour, then meditate for 2. So it's really powerful, isn't it? I remember walking up a street. I'd just taken one of the kids to school. This must have been after I'd quit because I was walking them to school that morning. And I'm walking back to the house and I'm zooming along, walking fast. And this guy is walking down the hill. I mean, he's moseying. I mean, really, like I pass him. I see him coming. He's walking so slow. And I see him coming and I literally say to him, "Oh my God, I wish I could walk as slow as you." Because even my husband, I've seen him get out. I can see the driveway from my window here in my office. I've seen him get out of the car. He moseyed around the car and got something out of the back of it. I thought I'd be in the house, already in the bathroom by now. So I still recognize that I don't master that yet. I'm a work in progress, but I know that's the trick. So I know that's the practice to get me back into my body, grounded, and able to look at what's possible without any kind of resistance or perceiving that I don't have enough time and I'm arguing for my limitations.
Yeah, I think some of the best coaches are people who get it. You understand it, you've been through it, and you're living it daily, and it's coming back up for you, that reminder to slow down, which is likely a huge part of what makes you such an amazing coach, on top of all of the other things that make you amazing at what you do. So, can you remember back to those like early days of having left? Because people do end up in this situation of, okay, I've decided to leave the job and now I'm panicking. And and do you work your clients through that period? What would you suggest to somebody who might be in that state? Because we talked about the people who are in corporate, still in the job, and the things that they could be doing to support themselves. What about the person who's already left and now they're listening to this podcast and they're like, shit, I already left. I didn't find the joy in the job. And now I'm like here and I'm panicking.
Well,
Any
first
advice?
of all, I would say to them, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. First of all, just everybody, just take a breath. It's going to be okay. And you are going to panic, and it's normal. And just keep coming back, right, to why you're doing it. Now, I'll give you a couple of things that occurred for me and my previous husband when I decided to come home and interrupt his world of, being the stay-at-home dad, right? I can remember we were about 7 weeks out from the quit. We called it the quit.
The big Q.
7 weeks out from the quit, we're sitting on the front porch and he decides that he's talking about us joining this club for the kids for the summer. And I mean, this was like, it wasn't even that expensive. I know everything's relative, but it was like you could join the university club at NC State and let the kids go use the pool for like $1,000. I mean, it was really inexpensive. You get access to this club the whole year. And I awoke that morning panicking about money. Now, let me be clear. I was an executive. I had a 1-year severance agreement that I just was able to say, I'm out, and they hand me a year's salary. So lucky me. But it doesn't matter that I was lucky, because I felt like I was living paycheck to paycheck, which I wasn't, but I believed I was. And that I only had a year to recreate a significant income. So when my ex-husband said, I think we should pay $1,000 and join the club, I was like, I think you need to be as panicked as I am. I literally said these words. I think you need to be as panicked as I am that we don't have any income coming in right now and that I've got to figure out how to make money. And he looked at me, and I remember thinking in retrospect how unfortunate that stress reaction was. And I was so sad about it, but it happened. And he just looked at me and he said, like I said to y'all earlier, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And one of those experiences is, it's going to be 100 of them. You're going to have them. And don't be an idiot. I mean, like, don't go keep living the same lifestyle that you were living if you don't have income. And start being very methodical and intentional and designing what happens next. Now, here was the biggest mistake I made. I designed a whole bunch of stuff with the foundation of the fear that I needed to recreate the same income in the first year. So all I could think was multiple revenue streams. Okay. So I started my coaching business. Okay, great. I can also be a consultant. Let me write that on the website. Yep, I can do that. I should be a speaker. Put those in there. Get the speaker profile ready. Then I was like, I met some amazing women who wanted to do coaching as a benefit to corporations. That's a great idea too. Let's start that company. So we started the company and we were in business for 4 years. We took that company from cradle to grave. And the reason we took it to the grave after having clients like Bank of America and Lockheed Martin, and we had 30 contract coaches across the globe, was because I had recreated the same circus under a different tent. I began to dread my CEO of my new company when she texts me. I did have an iPhone at this point. I just said Apple. That's how old you know I am. I did have an iPhone, and I remember thinking, I don't want to answer that. Oh my God, what's wrong? And these were great signs. I'm sharing the story because the signs you had at the big job that you quit, those same signs will show up again if you don't do the work. It wasn't about my job. It was about me. And here I was, I'd created the same circus under a different tent, and I was miserable again, drinking too much wine and dreading going to work. So I had to do it again. We closed the business. We celebrated. We had a big party. And we talked about how that was when I cried to my father that I had failed. Oh my God, we had to close the business. He said, how many years did you have that business? And I was like, 4 years. He goes, how much money did you spend? I was like, over $50,000 of my savings. And he said, how much does an MBA cost? I said, oh, I don't know, $50,000. And he goes,
more than that now, probably.
More than that now. And he goes, you just had a real life MBA. Chalk it up, move along. And I was like, oh my God, that turned my life around, because I was like, look at me, I'm failing. So I get it, guys. You're going to feel that way. You're like, oh, it's not working. I mean, I've been in business for almost 16 years on my own. And that one tax charge that I got last week almost threw me off I was like, what? So you're still going to have bumps in the road, but you're going to be able to handle them so much better if you keep having fun, right? And realizing, why am I doing this? What is the benefit of this life by design to me? What was the cost of the previous life to me? Can I come back to why this matters? The purpose. And as I once in tears, hugging on my ex-husband, miserable, fearful, uncertain, doubtful, I said, what am I going to do? And he said, you're just going to keep getting up every day and you're going to keep doing the work. Just keep going. That's my advice. Keep going. Because before you know it, you're 55 and you're like, well, shit, I only got to do this 10 more years. I'm doing fine.
Just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming, man. And you'll get clients. They come and they only come, like you said. I mean, I get more work when I'm on vacation than I do when I'm thinking about work and trying to find clients. When I let it all go, I'll get like 3 inquiries and I'm like, oh, there they are. There's those clients. Yeah, I knew they were coming.
Yeah, that frantic energy it's not going to generate the clients that you want and love. It's going to generate people who are frantic. It's going to generate what we put out is what we get. And so we get to see that in real time as entrepreneurs. It's a little more difficult to see that, I think, sometimes in a corporate environment or in a big team environment. But when it's just you, you see everything. It's a big mirror in front of you.
That's right. I mean, this like energy attracting like energy, the more, again, back to being relaxed, not resisting what is. I think the isness is what throws us off of our path and we get really scared. So you may not see it as much from a business perspective when you're in the working world or in an organization, but you'll see it with your relationships in the organization. So if you're frantic and you're running to the bathroom, the people around you will also be frantic and pick up their pace. Right. So if you want to be the calm, charismatic leader that rights the ship and keeps people focused and feel seen and connected, then you have to embody that now in order to attract more of what you want to see. That's the work. I invite you to just do the work. Keep doing the work. Keep doing the work. It'll get easier and easier and more fulfilling. And I don't even know if I made my final point of having COVID last week, but I found myself so slowed down that I thought, hey, maybe this is the universe showing me what is actually possible. Because I no longer want to go to the ecstatic dance class. I no longer need to go hang out in the covered wagon. I mean, you're having a blast. I would really rather read half of these books that are half read, finish reading the books that are half read on this shelf, and sit in the corner and just rest. And that's what I was forced to do with COVID. And now I'm like, I can still do that. I want to work as little as possible, Jen, and make as much money as possible. And I think it's happening. It's starting to happen more and more and more.
That's amazing. Well, I'm glad that you're feeling better and that you've
Thank
recovered
you.
and that you gained a lesson for yourself along the way. That's really cool.
Isn't there always a lesson? Oh my gosh.
There's always a lesson. Yes. When we can see that too. I think what's cool, something super cool, your dad, like what he said to you in that moment, completely the way that our perspective can completely change by a single thought. His reframing of that thought for you around you just got an MBA, your entire body relaxed. That's huge and so indicative of the power of our thoughts and the belief that is tied to that thought.
Yeah, my entire foundational coaching methodology is based on a concept called energy leadership. And that's exactly what you just said. So it's about an attitudinal perspective of life. It's a consciousness model that says, hey, what am I making this mean? Oh, it makes so much sense. If I made it mean I had failed, if my thought was if I failed, the emotion was shame. And then the behavior was I just feel apathetic. I don't know what to do next. I'm just going to go curl up in the corner. Well, of course I felt that way if that was my thought. And my father was offering up a new thought. What's a new way to look at this? And we moved away from a catabolic energetic state of misery and victimhood or fighterhood, to a state of, visionary, win-win, possibility, self-care, right? Caregiver, rationalizer. And that's the concept of energy leadership. And I highly recommend it. The book is called Energy Leadership. It's a little story to actually highlight the concepts of 7 levels of energy. And it's an attitudinal assessment. So it's subjective, which means we can change it. It's not a personality assessment. It doesn't say, oh, this is how you are. It's just who you are. For me, with my clients, I'm able to say, okay, well, this is how you have been raised to believe the world is. What would you like to make the world mean for you? Right? Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And then when they realize that it's not about them, it's about their thought, guess what? If I observe myself long enough, I can change my thought. You may have the immediate reaction, the original stress reaction that says, oh my God, I failed. I lost my business. Or it's that you recover quickly. So you can go, okay, well, yeah, of course I felt that way. Now it's a new day. Every day is a new fresh start. So what am I going to make it mean today? Loved my dad's advice. So now I tell that story all the time. Yeah. I didn't lose 50 grand. I invested it and gained insight and awareness and an education that is priceless.
Yeah. And the energy that you then operated from that shift in your belief and your thought. So huge. Thank you for giving us a little peek into that. Nicoa, I have one final question for you. Where do you see the magic in the world?
Oh, in me. Oh, it's in me. I have the powerful wand and my words are my wand, right? And anything that I tell myself becomes my reality. I am a magical being and so are you. And I see me in you. And that once you embrace that reality of connection, and by the way, that's my word for the year, connection. Once you embrace it and embody it, you just are empowered. You can either recognize that once you recognize that you're the common denominator in your life, you can either see that as the most annoying thing that you've ever figured out, or you can recognize that it's the most liberating thing. And that's where I think the magic lies. Once we can see that, then we're powerful and it becomes our superpower.
You're the 89th person I've asked that question to. You are the first person to say in me.
Oh, well, I think it's the truth, y'all. You should write that down.
I wrote it down. And also I was smiling ear to ear. You should have seen, I was like the Grinch with just like huge smile. Like that's just like, yes. That's where the power is. Yes. Oh, so beautiful. Okay. People are going to want to work with you. Where can they find you?
I would love to work with everybody, and I only have so many spaces available every year. So the best way to reach out to me, there's a couple ways. So if you want executive coaching, which is my specialty, and you come from a world similar to the ones I've been in or that Jen's been in, then I invite you to my referral website, which is Nicoa.coach. Yes, you can make the ending .coach now. Isn't that cool? Nicoa.coach is the website. And you'll find testimonials there, video testimonials from some of my clients. I also happen to do rapid transformational therapy work, which is hypnotherapy. And we go down and we really get into the subconscious, those big blocks that are preventing you from having that confidence to be successful in your career or out on your own. So you'll see a testimonial there. You can listen to my podcast, which you and I are podcast buddies, right? So go listen to Jen's interview at Coffee with Nicoa on all podcast platforms. I also have e-courses available on Udemy, and you can get access to all of this on my social media link tree via Instagram at Coffee with Nicoa. And I do want to put in a plug for a book I just launched, which is now on Amazon. And it's called My Life by Design Journal. And it is available. It's a little bit back ordered because it's on-demand printing. But go to Amazon, order your My Life by Design Journal. And it's not just a Canva journal, you guys. This is real strategic self-care and self-observation prompts for you to then journal about for your own well-being, to help you really get to come back to the magic of you so that you can live your life by design, the kind you don't need a vacation from.
Powerful. All of the links are in the show notes. We'll include them all there. So if anybody wants to go and check it out, it's available. Congratulations on launching the book. And can't wait to see where your next step in your life by design.
I'm just so glad you're on the journey with me, Jen. I'm so honored to be on your podcast. You're amazing. And I think we're going to have a lot more fun together in the future.
Yep. Let's have this conversation at least once a year.
Yes, it's a date.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Love you.
Oh, my goodness. I just know that you love her as much as I love her, because how can you not? I do hope you took some things away from yourself and that you go and try that exercise that Nicoa suggested of, can you walk 50% slower to the bathroom? And as you do it, notice the reaction in your body. Notice the thoughts that are happening. Just stop and notice. Well, don't stop. Walk 50% slower, but with awareness of what is happening inside of you as you do that. You can also try my 17 mile per hour experiment if you want to get a good laugh and make yourself really uncomfortable, and probably a lot of other people, except here in Portland, where people regularly drive that slow. That's actually normal. So good thing I prepared myself many years ago for that experience. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you did get something out of this that you would really love to share forward with a friend or with your social media, you're welcome to please do that. It would mean the world to me if you shared this episode. You can always take a little screenshot of the episode itself. You can tag me on Instagram. I'm Untethered Jen. You can tag Nicoa. Her Instagram is in the show notes. Go and follow her. She is going to delight you all the time. Thank you so much once again for listening. You just keep shining your magical unicorn light out there for all to see. I'll see you next time.